So, David, we've seen a lot of change, as we said, over the last 5 years. I don't think it's going to stop. There's going to be, the one thing that we can guarantee is that, change is inevitable. What do you think is going to happen over the next 5 years? I know you don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah.
But
so I think the first thing to agree on is that the fundamentals actually haven't changed. The components that make up a network are still the same as they were, 22 years ago when we worked together. The brand standards, or having a network standard and then having all the services operating on one network, has been the biggest change.
Yep.
If I was to look ahead for the next 5 years, I think the steps we've taken to get the hotel networks robust has been great. The next step is actually start getting redundancy in these networks.
Yes.
They are running the business day to day, minute to minute, and the points of failure need to be, even though networks, central switches don't fall over that often, they do. I think in the next 5 years we're going to see more redundancy of the weaker points on the network, which is effectively the bottlenecks.
Yep.
And if I was to look at sort of a second thing that might change in the next 5 years is probably, I think the suppliers are going to start working better as we all get more experience to working to standards and working together on a single network. That's been a big learning curve for the whole industry. And I know that hoteliers spend a lot of time worried that vendors are going to point fingers. I think as we're all getting used to the language of what each hotel network is operating on, there is less finger pointing and there's more focus on getting the networks back up. But that does lead on to, starting to focus on who holds the data and the data records of the network.
Yep.
And there are two components to keeping a network up, which is physically, where is it? Mm-hmm. Often the need to find equipment is once it's failed.
Yeah.
That's
true.
And then we're running around trying to find the last as-built drawings. I think that there will be, a move to having the databases of physical locations centrally available. And not at the responsibility of the vendors. While the vendors may be responsible for uploading the data, I think we'll start seeing that information being held centrally. So all parties that are working on the network can see recent photographs and where the location is, and so that when they do need someone on site, they can find the location faster. And so that's the physical part. The next part is the logical, or the configuration of the network.
Yep.
Again, that information has been held, by the vendor that runs the network, which is the right place for it to be.
Yep.
And those networks are often maintained to a brand standard. But there needs to be backups of that data.
Yep.
And I think that we're going to see centralized databases where we can find and restore networks faster without having to fall back onto Excel or to some other database that is not shared. So I guess in summary, the changes we're going to see, I would envision in the next 5 years, is probably more redundancy on the networks.
Yep.
So that we can sleep better at night, knowing that if something breaks, the network's not going to fall over. And then the key information about the network is centrally available and accessible to the parties that need access to it.
That's great. No, I love that. And I think as our dependency on technology is now greater than it ever was. We're still a people business, and I need to say that, because a lot of hoteliers get concerned that technology will replace humans within the industry. I don't think that's ever the case. I think we just need to use technology to help us deliver on the service. And so what we're saying today is that, from 22 years ago, where, I remember going into a very large hotel chain and talking to them about the need for guest internet. And they said, no, guests will never need internet access. Dial-up is the way to go. And then literally, 12 months later, corporates were coming out with their basically, request for business documents, and they required, high-speed internet access. So a lot has changed. And I think, as you said, the network's become more important. We've not only got guests on the network, we've now got hotel staff on the network. We're seeing, cloud-based PABXs, cloud-based PMSs, a whole bunch of stuff. So you're quite right. The quality of the network is now more important than it ever was.
Yes, and I think one of the simple rules of thumb that I use to whether a hotel network or any network is fit for purpose is if people are talking about it. If
in a positive way or a negative way.
people expect that there is going to be good Wi-Fi.
Yep.
So nobody talks about it if it's fit for purpose.
Okay.
So if you walk into a Qantas Club lounge or into a hotel or into a building where they supply Wi-Fi and people are talking about it, there is typically an issue somewhere, be it coverage, be it speed. So, I guess one of the first measures I use as to whether there's a problem is if anyone's talking about it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, because we don't go into a hotel and say, I hope they've got hot water. It's an expectation, and it's now the same with Wi-Fi.
Yes.
So if you deliver excellent Wi-Fi, then you won't get comments about it. But if you don't, then people will be complaining, and then that's something that needs to be addressed.
And that brings it back to a hotel network is not that much more complex than a home network.
Yep.
If we get home and somebody complains about the Wi-Fi, something's gone wrong. You don't come home and people thank you for the Wi-Fi.
Very true.
And if there was one thing that I'd like to share with people, that hotel networks aren't that complex. They just look complex. But there are really just 4 components. And if those 4 components suit the business requirements, nobody's going to talk about it. And they're going to be able to make faster, better business decisions going forward.